Every MMA submission type explained. The complete guide to finishing fights. The rear naked choke, the king of all submissions. Picture this, it's UFC 194 and Demian Maia has Brian Lahoud's back. In less than 3 seconds, Lahoud is unconscious, crumpling to the canvas like a marionette with cut strings. The rear naked choke, or as the Brazilians call it, mata-leão, the lion killer, just claimed another victim. This isn't just MMA's most successful submission, it's evolution's perfect killing technique, refined over millions of years of human survival. The rear naked choke works because it targets the carotid arteries, cutting off blood flow to the brain. Unlike air chokes that take minutes, a properly applied blood choke renders someone unconscious in 8 to 12 seconds. Royce Gracie used this technique to shock the world at UFC 1, proving that technique could overcome size and strength. But here's what makes it truly devastating. Once someone has your back with hooks in, your escape options drop to nearly zero. The statistics don't lie. In the UFC, the rear naked choke has an 89% finish rate when fully locked in. What separates the masters from the amateurs is the setup. Watch how Demian Maia doesn't just grab necks. He systematically breaks down posture, controls the wrists, and creates the angle. It's like watching a chess grandmaster execute a forced mate in 5 moves. But if you think choking someone unconscious is brutal, wait until you see how fighters can literally snap bones with nothing but leverage and timing. The armbar, breaking limbs with scientific precision. Ronda Rousey made it look like magic. 12 professional fights, 9 armbars, 8 first-round finishes. But the armbar isn't magic, it's physics applied with surgical precision. When you hyperextend an elbow joint beyond its natural range of motion, something has to give. And that something is usually a ligament, tendon, or bone. The armbar works on a simple mechanical principle. The human elbow only bends one way. Force it the wrong direction with enough leverage, and you're looking at 6 to 12 months of recovery time. Frank Mir demonstrated this brutally against Tim Sylvia at UFC 48, snapping Sylvia's forearm so loudly that the crack echoed through the arena. Sylvia's face went from confident to horrified in the span of a heartbeat. But here's what most people miss about the armbar. It's not about strength, it's about hip placement and angle. Rousey could armbar heavyweight men, not because she was stronger, but because she understood that your hips generate more power than someone's arm can resist. She'd trap the arm, bridge her hips, and create a lever system that even a gorilla couldn't escape. The setup variations are endless. You can hit it from guard, from mount, from side control, even standing. Each position requires different grips, different angles, different timing. It's like having a Swiss Army knife made of human joints. Speaking of joints, let's talk about a submission that attacks the strongest joint in the human body and still manages to break it. The heel hook, the point of no return. If submissions were horror movies, the heel hook would be the final scene where the monster reveals itself. It looks innocent enough, someone grabbing your foot, until you realize they're about to destroy your knee in ways that might never fully heal. This is why heel hooks were banned in most Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competitions for decades. They're just too dangerous. The heel hook attacks the knee by creating rotational force on a joint that's designed to move in only 2 directions, bend and straighten. When you add twisting motion, the ACL, MCL, and meniscus all become vulnerable simultaneously. Unlike other submissions where you feel pressure building, heel hooks often cause damage before you feel pain. By the time you realize you're in trouble, it's already too late. Dean Lister revolutionized this technique in MMA, but it was fighters like Ryan Hall and Gary Tonon who turned it into an art form. Hall's heel hook against Gray Maynard at UFC Fight Night 103 was textbook. He entered on a single leg attempt, transitioned to the leg entanglement, and finished the heel hook so quickly that Maynard barely had time to register what was happening. The psychological warfare aspect is equally devastating. Once fighters know you're dangerous with heel hooks, they become hesitant to engage in scrambles or go for takedowns. It's like playing poker when everyone knows you might be holding a royal flush, but leg attacks aren't just about heel hooks. There's an entire system of lower body submissions that most casual fans never see coming. The The triangle choke, geometry meets violence. The triangle choke is proof that the human body can become its own weapon. Using nothing but your legs, you create a noose around your opponent's neck and arm, cutting off blood flow with the precision of a boa constrictor. It's beautiful, it's technical, and when done correctly, it's absolutely inescapable. Anderson Silva's triangle choke against Chael Sonnen at UFC 117 remains one of the most dramatic comebacks in MMA history. Sonnen had dominated Silva for 4.5 rounds, talking trash and landing ground and pound. Then, with less than 2 minutes left in the fight, Silva locked up a triangle from his back and turned certain defeat into stunning victory. The crowd went from funeral silence to explosive celebration in the span of 15 seconds. The triangle works because it uses your opponent's own arm to complete the choke. Their arm becomes part of the noose, creating pressure they can't escape by simply pulling away. The key is the angle. You need to cut the angle to tighten the triangle, which is why you see fighters constantly adjusting their hips and pulling down on the head. What makes the triangle particularly nasty is that it can be set up from so many positions, from guard, from mount, even from standing positions. Each setup requires different grips and different timing, but the finish is always the same: unconsciousness in 8 to 15 seconds. Quick pause. If you're enjoying this breakdown of submission techniques, smash that like button harder than a Muay Thai knee strike. It really helps the channel grow. Now, let's talk about a submission that literally puts your opponent to sleep: the guillotine choke, the front headlock of doom. The guillotine choke is MMA's great equalizer. It can be hit from standing, from guard, during takedown attempts, or in scrambles. It's the submission that keeps wrestlers honest and makes every level change a calculated risk. When someone shoots for a takedown with poor head position, the guillotine is there waiting like a mousetrap. Gray Maynard built an entire career around this one technique. His guillotine was so feared that fighters would completely change their takedown approach when facing him. The technique works by compressing the trachea and carotid arteries simultaneously, creating both an air choke and a blood choke. It's like getting strangled and suffocated at the same time. The beauty of the guillotine lies in its versatility. You can hit it with an arm-in variation for more control, or go arm out for a tighter finish. You can jump guard to secure it, or use it to stuff takedowns. Charles Oliveira has turned the guillotine into an art form, using it not just as a submission, but as a way to control distance and dictate where the fight takes place. The twister, spinal manipulation at its most extreme. The twister looks like something from a medieval torture chamber, and honestly, that's not far from the truth. This submission attacks the spine by creating opposing rotational forces. Your upper body goes one way, your lower body goes the other, and your spine gets caught in the middle like a twisted towel. Korean Zombie's twister finish against Leonard Garcia at WEC 48 remains one of the most spectacular submissions in MMA history. The crowd didn't even know what they were watching at first. It looked like some kind of wrestling move gone wrong. Then Garcia tapped, and everyone realized they just witnessed something truly special. The twister is part of the 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu system developed by Eddie Bravo. It's a no-gi technique that requires incredible flexibility and timing to execute properly. You need to control your opponent's near side leg while creating a spinal twist that becomes increasingly uncomfortable until they're forced to tap. The Kimura, shoulder destruction with a legendary name. Named after Masahiko Kimura, the judoka who broke Helio Gracie's arm with this technique in 1951, the Kimura is shoulder manipulation at its most effective. It's a submission that can be hit from virtually any position, making it one of the most versatile techniques in all of grappling. The Kimura works by isolating the arm and creating leverage against the shoulder joint. Unlike the armbar, which attacks the elbow, the Kimura puts pressure on the shoulder, which is a ball and socket joint with a much wider range of motion. This means you can cause damage by rotating the arm in multiple directions. Frank Mir's Kimura against Pete Williams at UFC 36 was textbook execution. Mir controlled the wrist, stepped over the body, and applied steady pressure until Williams had no choice but to tap. The technique looked effortless, but that's the mark of true mastery, making the complex appear simple. What makes the Kimura particularly effective in MMA is its versatility. You can use it to sweep from guard, to transition to other submissions, or simply to control your opponent's posture. It's not always always about the finish. Sometimes the threat of the Kimura is enough to create openings for other techniques. The Americana, the Kimura's twisted sister. If the Kimura bends the arm one way, the Americana bends it the other. Also known as the key lock or udagarami in judo, the Americana attacks the shoulder by forcing the arm into external rotation. It's like trying to scratch your back, except someone else is controlling how far your arm goes. The Americana is particularly effective from side control and mount positions. Tito Ortiz made this submission famous in the early days of the UFC, using his size and strength advantage to muscle opponents into submission. But technique always trumps strength, and fighters like Matt Hughes showed that proper leverage makes the Americana work regardless of size differences. Hughes' Americana against Frank Trigg at UFC 52 was a masterclass in pressure and positioning. Hughes didn't just grab the arm and crank, he systematically broke down Trigg's defenses, isolated the arm, and applied pressure gradually until Trigg was forced to tap. The key to a successful Americana is controlling the wrist and keeping the elbow pinned to the ground. Once you have that control, you simply lift the hand toward the opponent's head while keeping the elbow stationary. The shoulder joint can only rotate so far before something gives. The shoulder joint can only rotate so far before something gives. The omoplata, the shoulder lock from hell. The omoplata is Jiu-Jitsu's most technical shoulder lock, a submission that requires flexibility, timing, and an understanding of leverage that borders on the scientific. It's like solving a Rubik's Cube while someone is trying to punch you in the face. The technique works by using your legs to isolate and control your opponent's arm while creating pressure on the shoulder joint. Unlike other shoulder locks that rely primarily on arm strength, the omoplata uses your entire body to generate force. It's physics applied to human anatomy. Nate Diaz's omoplata attempts against various opponents showcase the technique's versatility. Even when he doesn't finish the submission, the threat of the omoplata creates scrambles and transitions that lead to other opportunities. It's not just a submission, it's a position that opens up an entire world of attacks. The setup usually comes from guard, but advanced practitioners can hit omoplatas from side control, mount, and even standing positions. Each variation requires different grips and different body mechanics, making the omoplata one of the most complex submissions in all of grappling. What separates the omoplata from other shoulder locks is the finishing mechanics. You don't just crank the arm, you need to control the hip, break down the posture, and create a specific angle that makes escape impossible. It's like conducting an orchestra where every movement must be perfectly timed. The gogoplata, the submission from another planet. The gogoplata looks like something that shouldn't be possible. Using your shin across your opponent's throat while pulling their head down with your hands, it creates a choke that seems to defy the laws of physics. It's so unusual that most fighters have never even seen it attempted, let alone defended against it. Nick Diaz's gogoplata attempt against BJ Penn at UFC 137 introduced many fans to this bizarre technique for the first time. Even though Diaz didn't finish the submission, the attempt itself was enough to confuse Penn and create scrambling opportunities. The gogoplata requires incredible flexibility and timing to execute properly. You need to be able to get your shin across your opponent's throat while maintaining control of their posture. It's not a submission you can muscle into. It requires finesse and understanding of leverage that takes years to develop. What makes the gogoplata particularly effective is its element of surprise. Most fighters spend their entire careers without encountering this technique, so they have no instinctive defense against it. It's like speaking a language that only a few people in the world understand. The calf slicer, muscle compression at its most painful. The calf slicer doesn't attack joints like most submissions. It attacks muscle tissue directly. By creating pressure across the calf muscle, it causes pain so intense that even the toughest fighters are forced to tap almost immediately. It's like getting a Charlie horse that someone else controls. The technique works by trapping your opponent's leg and using your shin or forearm to create pressure across the calf muscle. The pain is immediate and intense, making it one of the fastest submissions in MMA when properly applied. What makes the calf slicer particularly nasty is that it can cause muscle damage that lasts for weeks. Unlike joint submissions that heal relatively quickly, Muscle compression injuries can affect mobility and performance long after the initial trauma. The bicep slicer, arm muscle destruction. Similar to the calf slicer, the bicep slicer attacks muscle tissue rather than joints. By creating pressure across the bicep muscle, it causes immediate and intense pain that forces even the toughest opponents to tap quickly. The technique is often set up from Kimura or Americana positions when the joint lock isn't available. Instead of attacking the shoulder, you redirect the pressure to the bicep muscle, creating a different type of submission from the same position. What makes muscle slicers particularly effective is their psychological impact. The pain is so immediate and intense that it creates a lasting impression on opponents. Even the threat of a muscle slicer can change how someone defends other techniques. The crucifix, total domination and control. The crucifix isn't just a submission, it's a position of complete dominance. When someone has you in a crucifix, they control both of your arms while having access to chokes, strikes, and other submissions. It's like being tied up while someone decides how they want to finish you. Matt Hughes' crucifix against Carlos Newton at UFC 34 demonstrated the position's devastating potential. Hughes controlled both of Newton's arms while landing strikes and threatening submissions. Newton had no defensive options and no escape routes. The crucifix can be achieved from various positions, but it always involves controlling both of your opponent's arms while maintaining a dominant position. Once established, it opens up a world of finishing options. The Peruvian necktie, the choke with an exotic name. The Peruvian necktie is one of MMA's most unusual chokes, combining elements of a guillotine with a unique grip that creates pressure from an unexpected angle. It's like a regular necktie, except it's designed to put you to sleep permanently. The technique gained popularity through fighters like Tony Ferguson, who used it to create scrambles and submission threats from unusual positions. It's not a high percentage finish, but its unpredictability makes it a valuable tool in the right hands. The setup usually comes during takedown attempts or scrambles where traditional chokes aren't available. It requires quick recognition and faster execution, making it a technique for advanced practitioners only. What makes the Peruvian necktie particularly interesting is its versatility. It can be used as a submission, a sweep, or simply a way to create scrambling opportunities that lead to other attacks. The Darcy choke, the Brabo's deadly cousin. The Darcy choke, also known as the Nogi Brabo choke, is a front choke that can be applied from various positions. It's like a guillotine's more technical cousin, requiring precise hand placement and body positioning to execute properly. The technique works by creating pressure on the carotid arteries while using your opponent's own shoulder to complete the choke. It's a blood choke that can render someone unconscious in seconds when properly applied. The anaconda choke, constriction at its finest. Named after the snake that kills by constriction, the anaconda choke works on similar principles. It wraps around your opponent's neck and arm, creating pressure that increases with every breath they take. The anaconda is closely related to the Darcy choke, but the grip and finishing mechanics are different. It requires rolling to the opposite side and using your entire body to create constricting pressure. What makes the anaconda particularly effective is its finishing power. When properly applied, it's one of the tightest chokes in all of grappling, creating pressure that's almost impossible to escape. The setup usually comes from front headlock positions or during scrambles where your opponent's head and arm become available. It requires quick recognition and precise execution to be effective. The north-south choke, suffocation from above. The north-south choke is applied from the north-south position, using your chest and arms to create pressure on your opponent's neck. It's like being smothered by a weighted blanket that someone else controls. The technique works by creating pressure on the trachea and carotid arteries simultaneously. It's both an air choke and a blood choke, making it particularly effective against opponents who are good at defending one type or the other. What makes the north-south choke particularly nasty is the feeling of suffocation it creates. Your opponent can't breathe, can't move, and can't escape. It's claustrophobia turned into a weapon. The Ezekiel choke, GI techniques in the Nogi world. The Ezekiel choke was originally a GI technique, but it's been adapted for Nogi grappling and MMA. It uses your own sleeve or forearm to create a choke from positions where other chokes aren't available. The technique can be applied from mount, side control, or even from inside someone's guard. It's versatile versatile, unexpected, and can catch opponents off guard when they're focused on defending other attacks. What makes the Ezekiel particularly interesting is its adaptability. In Gi grappling, you use the sleeve for leverage. In no-gi, you use your forearm. The mechanics change, but the effectiveness remains. The key is creating the right angle and using your entire body to generate pressure. It's not about arm strength, it's about positioning and leverage. After exploring all these submission techniques, from the fundamental rear naked choke to the exotic Peruvian necktie, one thing becomes crystal clear. Submissions in MMA aren't just about finishing fights. They're about understanding human anatomy, physics, and psychology all at once. Each technique represents years of evolution, refinement, and adaptation. That's a wrap on our complete guide to MMA submissions. If this breakdown helped you understand the beautiful complexity of ground fighting, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. We've got tons more fight breakdowns coming your way. Drop a comment and let us know which submission technique surprised you the most. And don't forget to check out our other videos where we break down everything from striking techniques to fight strategies. Until next time, keep training, keep learning, and remember, in the world of MMA, knowledge is the ultimate weapon.